Hey everyone, welcome back to our SwiftUI series, and today we're going to be tackling AI, and I'm not talking about like the ChatGPT AI, however the advanced enemy types found within games, as well as displaying the user score and handling the game flow and the user interface and experience a little bit more seamlessly. So in Bulletstorm 4.0, as I'm dubbing it now, we can now start the game and have this beautiful transition kind of take place. We'll also notice that as we're playing, we're going to be encountering some new enemies. You can see that these enemies that are flashing and glowing red, they're actually moving towards the player. So in my current game logic, 1 in every 10 enemy is going to be this extra seeker enemy that flashes red to let us know it's a little bit extra dangerous. We still have our power-ups, and now when we get hit, our kind of music cuts off. We have this game over, our final score, and we can choose to go back to the main menu. We have that nice little fade transition where we can play the game once more, or we could press the go again and we can restart our game very, very easily to create a better gameplay loop. So if this is something you're interested in, creating new advanced enemies for your player to encounter or to handle the game experience flawlessly, let's go ahead and dive on in to see how we can accomplish this. And before we hop into the video today, I want to give a quick shout out to my GitHub pages where you can find all my projects organized. So if we look at our SwiftUI projects, we can scroll down, we can see all the different examples, and there's even the tutorials linked within these as well. In the case of our previous Bulletstorm Revenge, so our SpriteKit game we're currently working on, you can grab the 2.0, the 3.0, I think even just Bulletstorm Revenge, the first one we created, is also available here. And again, you can watch the tutorials. Otherwise, let's go ahead and hop on into the video. So the next thing I want to add is the smart AI. And this is something you can get really creative with, and what really sets a lot of games apart is how the enemies function. Right now they're static, they just fall. That's fine for, the first version of our game. But what if we want to add more enemy types? Well, let's go ahead and also data model this. So let's create a new Swift file. So we're going to do a new empty file, and I'm going to call this one EnemyManager. And this is where we can include as many different enemies as we want. First thing we're going to want to do is import SpriteKit. And the one I'm going to show you today is how we can essentially have them as like a seeker to detect the player. We're also going to create an enum here for the enemy types. So EnemyType, which is just going to be a brace here, and we're going to have a couple different cases. The first one is going to be normal, so just the standard enemy that moves straight down. And then we're going to have the case of the seeker. And this is going to slowly move towards the enemy's exposition. So let's create a new class here, and we'll call this one EnemyNode. This is going to conform to the SK sprite node. Just like with the power-ups, we're going to create a variable for the type, which is going to be the enemy type. And this is going to store that type of enemy. We're also going to need to initialize. We're going to use the autofill feature here. There's a lot more we're going to be adding within here. So we have the self.type from the initial, and then we're going to have the super.init. And we're going to actually include a texture again, and we're going to have the color and the size. So for the texture, it's just going to equal whatever the texture is. For the color, we're also going to have this one be .clear. Size is going to be the texture.size. We shouldn't have to mark this one as optional though. We should be good. All right, next we're going to set up the physics body for collision detection. We can even go ahead and copy and paste this from our enemy. So what we can do to save some time is we can actually go back to our game scene. And under our function of spawning the enemy, we actually just copy our physics body for the enemy. So we've already done the code. We're just kind of transporting where it is. So let's go ahead and paste it here. And instead of the enemy, we're going to do self dot. So we're going to replace all of these with just self. With the exception of this first one here, where the circle of radius, we can't really have enemy size. So it's just going to be sized out with divided by 2. Okay, and if the enemy is a seeker, I want it to stand out, and we're going to create a function to add a glow effect. So if type equals dot seeker from our enums there, we're going to add GlowEffect. Now that's a function we have yet to create it'll just basically add a red glow or whatever color you choose for visual distinction. All right, we have our requirement again. Let's go ahead and hit the fix, and that should just go ahead and fix it right away. And we should be good to go. Oh, and we need to resolve this error. So next to type, we want to have the texture, which is going to be the SK texture. I was like, why are we getting the error there? It's because we never declared the texture. Okay, let's go ahead and now create the functions for handling the seeker. So we're going to do a function called update movement. And we're going to actually need the player position within this parameter. And this is going to be a CG point. All right, let's go ahead and add a brace. So with the switch, we're going to have this be a type. And this is going to also like future-proof for any other enemies or AI you add, right? So the first case is going to be the .normal. And this is just going to break because normal enemies just fall downward, no additional movement. Then we're going to have another case of the seeker. So in this one, we're going to have a movement speed. So let move speed. And this is going to be a CG float. And I'm going to have this equals 5. So this is going to be the speed at which the seeker moves towards a player. If this is too slow, increase it. If this is too fast, reduce it. We're then going to handle our logic to adjust the seeker's X position to move towards the player. So if player position dot X is greater to self dot position dot X, go ahead and add a brace here, self dot position dot X plus equals move speed. Then we're going to have our else if player position dot X is less than self dot position dot X. Add a brace here, self dot position dot X minus equals move speed. Oh, misspelled position. Why do I? Oh, there's always one time I misspell that word. Maybe there's just some words I'm just terrible at. So essentially, if we're greater than, if we're less than, no matter where we are, the seeker's going to be adjusting to kind of move towards our player position here. All right, and let's go ahead and add that pulsating red effect. So let's go ahead and leave this function here, and we're going to create a private function this time, and this is going to be add GlowEffect. Nothing within those parameters, and we're going to have a glow action. So let glow action equals sk action. This is going to be dot colorize, which is pretty cool. We're going to do the second option, so width. So we can choose a UI color here. So I'm going to make mine dot red. That kind of screams like, hey, this enemy's going to come get you. And with a color blend factor, it's kind of it's a double, I believe, and it ranges from 0.0 to 1.0, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to set this to be 0.7, and then the duration is how long it's going to kind of last. The color blend, kind of think of it like a tint, so like or opacity kind of. So the higher, it's going to change. Let's have this be a duration of 0.3. Then we'll have let remove glow equals sk action, because I want to kind of pulsate. Colorize width. We'll set this to be .white. The tint, let's have it be 0.0. So it shouldn't show anything, right? And it should kind of flicker between these two things. And it'll also be duration of 0.3. Then pulse equals sk action sequence. If you had to guess, glow action followed by the remove glow. And then we're going to have a repeat glow. So let repeat glow equals sk action dot repeat forever. And it's going to be the pulse. So as long as it's there, it's going to loop continuously. Then we're going to set the self.run to repeat glow. Okay, so now that we have this enemy type, we need to still be able to be sure that we are spawning it, right? So if we go back to our game scene, in our function of spawn enemy that we just copied the enemy physics for, let's go ahead and adjust the enemy type. So we have the enemy texture, we have the position, random size, right? So let's go ahead and create the enemy type. So let enemy type, and this is going to conform to our enemy type that we've created, equals int.random. And I'm going to set this to be a 10% chance. So I'm going to set this to be 1 to the range of 10. And if it equals 1, then it's going to be a seeker, right? So every time it rolls a 1 in that range, it's going to spawn a seeker. Otherwise, we're using a ternary operator, it's going to be normal. So essentially, this is a 10% chance to spawn a seeker enemy. This is how I'm kind of handling my percentages here. It's pretty cool. Okay, and we're going to take this let enemy and the kind of size here, and we're actually going to put it underneath the let enemy type we just created. We're also going to adjust this enemy here, and we're going to have this equal the EnemyNode class. And from here, we're going to include the type and the texture. So the type is going to be the enemy type we have above, and the texture is just going to be the enemy textures dot random element. We still want them to be like kind of random. It doesn't matter to me what they are, and we're going to use the exclamation point to force unwrap that. Alrighty, and in our function of moveEnemies, again, feel free to do the command F because we are using the kind of movement speed in our seekers. Now we're going to update our function of moving the enemies, which will allow the enemies to move on that x-axis when they are the seeker. So we're going to make some changes here. And if we really want to, we can kind of just start from scratch. Might make a little bit more sense. So for node in children, we're going to add a brace here, and we're going to say if let enemy equals node as question mark enemy node. And this is essentially going to check if the node's an enemy. Let base speed is going to be a CG float, and this is going to equal size dot height divided by, and we're going to take 3.0 and times it by 60. Essentially, this is going to move enemies in 3 seconds at 60 FPS. We're going to have our adjusted speed, which equals our base speed times enemy speed modifier. Then we're going to access our enemy.update movement with the player position. And here we're going to grab the player position. I'm going to use autofill because I can't spell that word. And this is going to adjust the seeker's X movement towards the player. We'll have our enemy.position.y minus equals, not dot u, not y, minus equals the adjusted speed. And then we'll go ahead and say if enemy.position.y is less than the minus enemy size.height. This is going to remove it if it's off screen. So enemy.remove from parent. Okay, let's go ahead and now run our game, and this should allow the enemies that are glowing red, you'll see them kind of pulsating on every 10 apparently, 10% chance. These should kind of be seeking the player out. Let's see if we can get some to spawn. Oh, we can see the meteorite. It's moving towards us to the right. Let's see if we can have one on the right side kind of move left. So you make sure that both of our angles work. You see the satellite is moving towards us. Double check that our shield still works. Wonderful. So yeah, this allows us to kind of randomly spawn, and you can play around with the balance. You can play around with the enemy types. Look at that, we had 2 in a row. And you can see that as I kind of juked it, it started moving towards the right. So these are going to be seeking the player. If this is too fast, too slow, adjust it as necessary. And when we slow down the time, we can see that it's still working perfectly. Wonderful. Something you might want to consider is when the kind of power-ups end, you'll see that some of the sprites get a little stuck near the bottom. We might want to fix that in the future, but otherwise it's pretty great. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and update the showGameOver screen. Currently, I don't even think it shows. It just shows the explosion and then eventually our player response. So in our showGameOver, we're going to reference the showGameOver screen right under the player remove from parent. I'm going to get rid of the restart game kind of self action here, and I'm going to have a show game over screen. Now we don't have this function yet. Let's go to the bottom of our kind of file here, and let's create that function now of show game over screen. And nothing within these parameters. Let's go ahead and add a brace here, and just to be crystal sure that everything is going great, I'm going to have our game timer dot invalidate, our score timer dot question mark dot invalidate, and our power up timer as well, question mark dot invalidate. Oops. invalidate. We're also going to have our sound manager.shared.stop background music. This is something that we created before, so when the game's over, it's going to stop the music. Next, we're going to create a black semi-transparent overlay. So let overlay equals sk sprite node. Then here we're going to include a color and a size. I'm going to use the second option here. And this one's going to be a UI color.black with alpha component. I'm going to set this to be 0.6 to kind of adjust the opacity there. And the size is just going to be the self.size, so it can fill the screen. We'll then add an overlay, and we'll set this position to equal a CG point. And this is going to have an X and Y value. X is going to be self.size.width. And we're going to divide that by 2 to put it in the center, and the Y, same thing, but with the height. So self.size width divided by 2 to just kind of center the overlay. And we're going to have our overlay.z position. It's going to equals 10, so it's going to always be above other elements. Then we'll go ahead and add that child of overlay. Next, let's create a game over text. So let's have this game over label equals sk label node. And here we can include a font name. I'm going to do the Avenir, I don't know, next dash bold. Just keep in mind this does need to be a string. Then we can have our game over label dot text. This is going to equal game for, I'm going to do all caps for this one. And we can also change the font size. So let's have this be 40. We can also choose the font color. It's going to equal dot white. And because I want it to kind of be above the center a little bit, let's go ahead and adjust the game over label dot position. And we're going to choose the one with the CG point and the X and Y. So we're just going to do the self.size.width divided by 2. So one in the center, but for the Y, we're going to have the self.size.height divided by 2 plus 80, which should push it up a little bit above the center. And because we want this to appear over the z-axis, we're going to set the .z position to equals 11. We want to be 1 above that kind of transparent screen that we've created. Let's also create a final score label as well. So this one we call final score label, which is going to equal a sk label node. We can also include the font named here. Get into the Avenir next dash bold. And a lot of these things are going to be the same. If you want to copy and paste and just change it, go for it. Score label equals go again. So for this one, again, a lot of things are going to be the same, but I'm going to have the dot text equal, I'm just going to have our final score. And we're going to go ahead and interpolate the score here. And we'll add seconds, want to add emojis, you know, do whatever you want with this, make it your own. Something we'll be changing is the position. We're going to use our CG point again, our X and Y. And for this one, we're going to have the self.size.width divided by 2, so it's going to be the center horizontally, and the self.size.height divided by 2, we're going to do plus 30. So this should allow it to be just below the kind of game over. And let's also have the .z position equals 11, and we'll also add the child, the final score label. Oh, I forgot to add the child of the game over label. All right, I'm going to show you a little kind of cheat here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this final score label 2 times. Because what I want to show you is you can do a really cool trick when you're working in Xcode. And if you hold Control Shift and then click on other lines, you'll see that we kind of add additional kind of highlighter, line selections here. So now what happens, we can actually edit all of these lines at the exact same time. So for this one, let's go ahead and have this be the retry button. You can see that all of those lines update. You can just click on another line to kind of like unselect it. But let's go ahead and now edit this text. It's much quicker this way. So we can say go again, let's have this one be maybe green. And for the size here, we're going to kind of push this off to the left side. So this is going to be 2 minus 100. And let's have the height be minus 30. All right, wait, oh, I edited the wrong one there. We can keep this final score label, and then on the last one, Control Shift, let's edit all these other ones. And this one will be the main menu button. So let's go ahead and reduce this one. Main menu button. Let me just call it menu button, doesn't really matter. And let's update this text. Go home, maybe main menu. Yeah, let's do main menu. And let's have this one be yellow. Cool. And for this size, let's make it plus 100 and also minus 30 on the height. And we're going to actually override a function, and this will allow us to detect when the player taps the go again or return to main menu buttons. So we're going to override a built-in function called touches began. We're going to use the autofill here, so set UI touch, great. We're going to create a guard let here. And this is going to have our touch equals touches dot first else. Now we're just going to go ahead and return. Make sure there's spaces in your return here. You might get some weird errors. So this is going to ensure that there's at least one touch. Then we're going to have our location equals touch dot location in self. So this is going to basically grab the touch location, and we're going to have our let touched node equals at point. And then we're going to basically say, okay, that location, you know, we're getting the touch location, and then we're going to use that to determine what we're kind of touching in the node. So if touched node dot name equals, and this is where we're going to reference our main menu button. Make sure you spell exactly as you did above. We're then going to have our go to main menu, which is a function we haven't created yet. We will in just a moment. Else if touched node dot name equals retry button. We're then going to restart the game. All right, let's really quickly make that function to go to main menu. So func go to main menu, just in case, you know, let's go ahead. Oh, nothing within the parameters, by the way. Let's go ahead and grab our sound manager and game timer and validate and all that. Let's also just include it in the go to main menu. You never know. And then we're also going to have our self dot remove all actions and self dot remove all children. It's going to stop any actions, and it's also going to remove any game elements from the scene. And we need to actually add the button name. So we're going to do retry button dot name equals retry. And we're going to do the exact same thing for our main menu here. So main menu button dot name equals, we called it main menu button. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to actually just notify SwiftUI that we want to switch back to the main menu. We're going to do this a different way than we've done before. We're going to do the notification center dot default dot post, and I'm going to select the one with name and object. So for the name, I'm actually just going to double click on this because that's exactly what we want. And then we're going to add a bracket. We're going to include like kind of a description name. So it's going to be exit to main menu. And for our object, let's go ahead and set this to be nil. Essentially, this is going to notify SwiftUI, hey, we're all done. We're going back to the main menu here. In our content view, we're going to have to make a couple changes, but luckily for us, we can actually keep a lot of this. The main thing we're going to be doing is instead of the navigation stack, we're going to instead have a Z stack. On the first line within the Z stack, we're going to create an if show game scene. And this is a state private variable right here. So add state private var. So show game scene, which is a boolean, and it's going to equals false. So if this boolean is true, so if show game scene, we're going to go ahead and boot to our game view. And from here, we're actually going to add a dot ID, which is a UUID On the next line, we're going to have a dot on receive, and this is where we're going to be grabbing that notification center. So notification center dot default dot publisher 4. You can even grab the one we created earlier if that's easier for you. So notification dot name, and then it's going to be that exit to main menu. Make sure you spell it the exact same way as you did above. We don't need this perform void, so there should be 3 brackets there. And we're going to add a brace underscore in show game scene equals false. So this is going to listen for an exit notification to return to that main menu. After this if statement, we're going to else into our VStack. So what I would do is at the end of my VStack, just add 1 more brace so it closes off that else statement. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this padding, don't need it. Cool, and at the end of our VStack here, so right after it is where we're gonna add our dot transition. I'm gonna set this one to be dot opacity. And then we're gonna go 2 braces below that. We're essentially outside of our Z stack. Then we're gonna add a dot animation. And we're gonna set this to be dot ease in out. And the value is going to be based on the show game scene. So this should now allow us to have that nice faded transition in and out. All right, and we're not quite done, unfortunately. I forgot about the navigation link. This is instead going to be a button here, and we're going to do the one with the action. And in this case, we're going to then add our brace, and it's going to set our show game scene to equals true. And then we can go ahead and add some style here. So first add our text, start game, bold it, some padding, right, frame, set the max width to be dot infinity, or dot background to be dot blue, foreign style, let's have it be white. Cool, let's go ahead and run our app. And we should be good to go. And start the game, see our beautiful fade, get hit on purpose. Let's go again, properly restarts our game. Enemies respawn. The only thing is our background music has not started again. So maybe in our restart game, we need to start playing the background music once again. We'll go ahead and fix that. Let's go to the main menu. We're good to go. Oh, we can see that the background music starts playing. So let's go really quickly to our restart game. And let's find the function for it. And right before our start game, cool. So this is our new and improved game. We have the new enemies. We have the different power-ups. It took us a long time to get there, but now we have the necessary skills for game development. And the way that it's set up with the data modeling means if we do want to add like a clear screen in the future, any other power-ups, any other enemies, we have set ourselves up for success. We now have the necessary tools to handle proper collision and all of these different fun features. So next time we're going to be taking a look at leaderboards, as well as making our background a little bit more interactive and kind of adding some more polish to our game. I'm super excited and I can't wait until we make an app store ready. Let's make sure our music starts again on go again. There we go. We fixed that bug super quickly. And now we have an even better game than we did before. So I love how every single time we've been kind of just improving upon this game. Next time, we're going to be taking a look at leaderboards, as well as some different customization options for the player to give a better user experience overall. That's something we should be constantly thinking about when we're making apps, is how can we make this experience as best for the user every single time they open up this application. So super excited to be bringing you this kind of series, and I hope to see you in the next one. Dream big, code bigger. Oh, and any of the completed files are also found on my GitHub pages, so make sure you go check that out too. Now this was a long one. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you later.